Terms and conditions, EULAs, privacy policies. Chances are if you've done anything on the internet at all, you've seen them, possibly been inundated by them. But have you ever actually tried to read one of these things? Turns out it's borderline impossible. Take the Nest line of smart home products, for example. University of London legal scholars have estimated that by entering into this contractual ecosystem, you're signing up to roughly 1,000 of these so-called contracts. Whether you're ordering something off Skip or signing up for a free email account online, if it is a digital service being offered to you, chances are you're going to be asked to consent to something. Earlier this year at OTESSA, Bonnie Stewart and Samantha Szcyrek out of Windsor presented findings collected by their research team on this very subject. Out of the 339 survey responses they received, they found that roughly 60% of them only read these things less than 10% of the time when introducing new technologies to their students. And this is a big deal because as the world becomes more and more dependent on these technologies, our community of educators needs to stay on top of things like data management and the state of digital surveillance within our industry. Of course, not all policies are created equal, and sometimes it's what's found in the fine print that can determine whether or not a tool or technology gets adopted for institutional use. Here at Trent University, we're all familiar and have access to things like Microsoft Office, Outlook, Google Gmail, Teams, Zoom. If you work with us here at Trent Online, you're likely familiar with things like VoiceThread or Hypothesis or Padlet. To help us explore and explain the relationships that we have with technologies that we use here at the university, we sat down with Ian Thomson, our Information Security Officer. Ian, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. This is great.
Yeah,
it's nice to see you guys.
Yeah, nice to see you after our long
pause.
Yes, that's
long pause from in person.
I feel like this is a long time coming in terms of like teaching notes, memo, video, and you had mentioned that this works out wonderfully. It's going to dovetail with IT and the cybersecurity push.
Yeah, October is Cybersecurity Month, so this is a good opportunity to talk about all things digital life related, because it all kind of ends up being vulnerable at some point or another.
As we've been learning a little lately.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely a lot of stuff going on in the cybersecurity world, and just overall in the world at large, this is becoming a hot topic. So yeah, the more we can do to spread some awareness, the better for everybody.
Agreed. On that note, so I guess my first question for you, along with the topic of today's video, is with regard to the privacy policies, terms and conditions, the EULAs, and we're not reading these things. People just click through them. And so I guess my first question for you, and this is something I've legitimately wondered about, and I feel like I kind of have the answer, but I don't know for sure. I have personal Outlook and Gmail accounts. I know that these are services that are offered by the university that we use. What's the difference between me using my personal accounts and accounts that I guess are managed by the institution?
Yeah, for sure. So that's a great question. And it kind of comes back to the motivations behind the companies that offer those free services, right? Like they're trying to monetize them in some way. And sometimes it's used as a platform to just sell you what we call freemium, right? You get the free, sort of the sweetheart deal. And then if you want to, use more storage, they charge you for it. And that's a platform to make money. A lot of the time, though, that in that EULA that you're not reading, you're actually surrendering a lot of your rights to privacy when you use those services. So a personal Gmail account is a good example. Google has free rights to, go into that mailbox and mine all of your data and sell it to advertisers. That kind of thing is something that we've specifically negotiated with the vendors we deal with, so that that's not happening on your Trent account. They can't do that. So that, those are good examples of the controls that we build into those institutional services that you're not going to get with a free account, right? Because they're giving you that service for free, they can do pretty much whatever they want with it at any time. That doesn't happen in the Trent service because we've contracted with them legally that they have to kind of toe a more appropriate line on privacy and delivery.
Right. Okay. So the university is quite literally negotiated in this case with Google, so that when I'm using their suite of products, my data is more governed by Trent than it is by them.
Exactly, more protected by us. And it's not just Trent that's gone and done this advertisement or this negotiation with them. We actually go as a consortium of Canadian universities, and we negotiate with companies like Google and Microsoft on behalf of the group. So, we're getting the high-powered lawyers from U of T and these big schools that are negotiating and providing this deal to the entire group. So that gives us the buying power and the oomph needed to really negotiate a deal that heavily favors the privacy that we want to provide to our community.
I didn't realize that it was a group negotiation. That's almost like the LCBO, where they have like a lot of negotiating power because it's this.
Yeah. The group is called the Canadian Council of University Chief Information Officers. It's CUCIO is the acronym, but gotta love acronyms with IT people, right? But yeah, we go as a group and we negotiate these deals with Microsoft and Google and all these big companies to make sure we can get the best terms for everybody.
So let's say, and I know we have like a lot of institutionally sanctioned tools, things that we've built into and integrated with Blackboard, with our LMS, whether it's something like Hypothesis or VoiceThread. So is something similar happening there in terms of what's happening with the data?
Yeah, for sure. So any service that we integrate with the LMS or we provide as a tool to our users through IT has gone through a security assessment. That's a big part of what I do on a daily basis. I spend a lot of time working with departments to buy and procure these solutions and making the vendors go through it's like 50 questions that we ask them about who owns the data, how are you using it, how is it stored, how is it kept safe. So any one of those tools that is provided sort of institutionally, we've gone through that vetting process and we're making sure that it's safe. It's a good place to put your data that's not going to come back and get sold to somebody else for advertisement dollars or something like that. It's all just about making sure there's nothing shady going on with the tools that we give people.
And so I know that initially during our pause, that there was some talk about where the data was residing with something like Zoom, and some people were saying that Zoom is an American company, these servers are abroad.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. It kind of goes into the whole overall risk equation. People tend to think that just because the data is located in a certain geographic area, that automatically means risk. For me, it's more about, how is that data protected? If it's encrypted data, it can't easily be read anyway, so it doesn't really matter where it is. So we ask questions not only like where is your data, but is it encrypted? Is it stored, in a way that can't be read? So even if it was seized by a government agency, what are they getting from that seizure? If they're getting a bunch of gobbledygook, it doesn't really matter, right? If they're getting, our data in plain form, that's more of a concern. So that risk has to be evaluated from multiple ways. There's no hard and fast rules about, don't put your data here. There are some countries that I just say, maybe we shouldn't put our data in. But, looking at that risk from a lot of different viewpoints can really help you figure out, whether that's going to be a good risk or a bad risk.
And I think that's such a wonderful way to put it, because I know when we were kind of hashing out the idea for this video, that's kind of a theme that we've landed on, that idea of balance when it comes to whether it's our data and our privacy, but also how do we weigh the pros and cons of this is a great pedagogical tool. I want to use it. I know it's going to enrich the classroom. there are these other things though that are kind of troubling. So how would you recommend instructors and educators here at Trent, or anywhere, I guess, for that matter, go about kind of striking that balance when they're trying to either adopt things or introduce them in the classroom?
Yeah, the first thing is just, get us involved early on so we can actually go through the process of doing that assessment. Sometimes those assessments get back to us in like a day, and it's really easy. It's a bunch of quick wins. The company's done it a bunch of times, and they just know what we're going to ask, and they've got all the answers ready for us. Sometimes it takes a couple of months for them to formulate those answers in a way that's going to be okay. So lots of time to get things in the door, and then it's an opportunity for us to have a conversation with you about what the risks actually are. There are rules around, some things are absolute deal breakers on a policy level, but most of the time it's just about understanding what those risks are, and that's the way we want to do it. My job is to highlight risks for the institution, to say, look, this is what you're agreeing to. Is that okay? And if it is, there's always going to be risk, right? You're never going to eliminate it fully. It's just about understanding what those risks are and, what you can possibly do to mitigate them a few times. The good news is the number of these reviews that we've done where we've actually said, run, don't walk, is minimal. We've done about 50 to 100 of these things, and I can only count a few times where we've said, look, this isn't somebody we should be dealing with. So the vast majority of times it's just about finding out what, making sure all the boxes are checked and putting a plan in place to make the product successful. And it's just really about due diligence at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where we were, Dwayne Collins had come to give Trent Online and Teaching and Learning a copyright overview workshop. And so a lot of what you're saying was a lot of what he was telling us, where it really is just about highlighting and managing risk in a lot of ways. And that's where involving the library early, or as you're saying, involving you and IT early in these ideas, it's something that can get negotiated and explored. Yeah,
oftentimes even if there are issues with a vendor, we can go back to them and say, hey, can you do something about this? Can you move the data to another location? Can you provide better encryption? Can you or just clarifying something with them? And oftentimes they're more than willing to do that.
Like with Google.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Like, Google, from a personal perspective, you could never negotiate with Google. I mean,
they're like a Goliath.
Yeah. Good luck even getting somebody who works there on the phone. Right. But, going to them institutionally or multi-institutionally and negotiating with them, they were glad to do that. At the end of the day, they want to make the sale, right? So they've got a vested interest in making sure that we're a customer of theirs.
If they can tune down a couple of the sliders, if it means getting the sale,
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess my last question is, a lot of the time, I know I'm definitely a victim of it. I have to imagine a lot of other people are. You're talking with people, you're at a conference, you're flipping around online, something shiny and new comes across your desk, you think, wow, I want to use that. That looks awesome. And I always think of my father when I'd bug him for McDonald's. We have food at home, like that kind of an attitude. As an instructor, as an educator, is there an easy way to find out what I already have access to here at Trent?
Yeah, so that's something that we're working on quite heavily in IT with the Service Hub. If you go through and you drill into those pages, it's a little bit buried, and we're working on that, I promise. But if you go through some of those service pages, it tells you what you have access to and all that kind of stuff. The other thing you can do is you can just go to the Hub and you can search. If you're looking for a particular tool with a particular need, type that into the search bar and see what comes up. If all else fails, toss a ticket into us. We will be glad to tell you, what's available and what's not available. That's no problem at all.
I remember at one point there was a web page, like the Computing Commons.
Yeah.
Is that still a thing?
Yeah, I think that information is still on our public website. It's also definitely still in the Hub.
And that's been folded into, a lot of the things have been getting folded into the self-service Hub.
Yeah, that's where we want to go, because the Hub just gives us a lot of better searching, right? right? You can search your previous tickets, you can search the services, you can search our answers. So putting the data there makes a lot of sense for us. It really helps us get the information out there.
And it improves things for, I guess, the end user, for the rest of our community, where instead of, oh, I'm hunting for that page, I know it's out there somewhere, you can just go to the hub.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea. You know, we want to make it kind of like the library services where, you know, you don't walk into the library and say, I need a book. You know, you go to their website and you find the book. That's what we want to give you, because that's going to be available to you 24/7.
Right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well,
yeah. This is great. You know, a lot of cool technology on the horizon, and we definitely want to help users adopt technology that's going to help them in their jobs and in their teaching. We just want to make sure that, you know, it's not going to get us on the news, or it's not going to be an unsafe avenue for the university to go down. So definitely want to help with adoption of cool tech. It's just making sure that it's all safe and everybody's protected.